Okay, so a very good evening to all of you. Okay, so we are going to start. Very welcome you from EcoVision Academy. We are going to start monopoly market, meaning of monopoly market, basis of monopoly, and moreover the features of monopoly. Okay, so these notes will help you to go through the monopoly, and moreover we have a table of contents. We just go through the table of contents. What are we going to learn, and after that completing the table of contents, we shall move forward with the contents itself. So the first thing we are going to go for is the introduction for monopoly, introduction to monopoly. Then we are going for meaning and definition of monopoly, the meaning and definition of monopoly. Then the most important thing, what are the sources, how a monopoly becomes, how monopoly is being created. Okay, what are the bases or what are the sources of monopoly, what is the main pillar, what is the main basis of the monopoly. Then we are going for what are the features and characteristics of monopoly. Okay, then for advantages of monopoly and disadvantages of monopoly, up to 6 we will cover today, and we move from 7 to 11 for the next day. Up to 6 we shall cover today. Okay, what is the introduction to monopoly, meaning of monopoly, what are the bases, the most important part I should tell, that the basis of the monopoly, features of the monopoly, advantages and disadvantages. These quick things will give you a boost for any kind of competitive exams like NET set, or if you are appearing for Indian Economic Service or any kind of competitive exams are all over. More than that, if you are a graduation UG student or PG student currently studying in economics, or from any other background, but economics is in your not in your major course but in a minor course, so you can get help of that. Okay, so without wasting time, let us just go for monopoly. Okay, the main thing is that in economics, what we call monopoly, as the term monopoly actually comes from two Greek words. One is monos and another is polen. Okay, this the word monopoly, it basically comes from two Greek words. The word has broken down into monos and another is polen. Okay, okay, what does this monos means and polen means? Monos means single. Monos means single and polen means to sell. Monos means single and polen means to sell. Okay. So what is the basic definition or meaning of monopoly? That where there is a single seller of a product with no close substitute. With no close substitute, only a single seller of a product. That market is known as monopoly. Okay. Means if I am selling something and that have no close substitute, and I am only the single seller in that particular market, then it is known as monopoly market. Okay, fine. Now there are several definitions given by the economist, that what do you mean by a monopoly. First, Kurno. Kurno told that a monopoly is a market situation which there is a single seller of a product for which there are no close substitute. What we said actually right now, that there a monopoly market is a situation where there is only a single seller and of a particular product, and there is no close substitute of that product. Okay, so that can be termed as a monopoly market. Then Chamberlain, monopoly refers to the control over the supply of a product which has no close substitute. Monopoly is a market where I should have the control over the supply of the product with no close substitute. Because if there is no close substitute, then the whole supply is dependent upon me and I can control the whole supply. Then for Kurzweil's monopoly is a market structure in which there is a single seller, there are no close substitute for the commodity it produces, and there are barriers to entry. So Kutzwani told that monopoly is a market structure which is there is a single seller. All the economists, moreover, they told the same thing, but there is a slight difference in their definition. Kurno told that there is a single seller, no close substitute. Chamberlain told that I should have the control over the supply with no close substitute. Kutzwani told that monopoly is a market structure where there is only a single seller, but there should be no close substitute. Okay, and for the commodity, and there should be barriers in entry, means I cannot enter the market. If anyone wants to join the market, they cannot enter the market very easily. There should be some barriers to entry. So basically what monopoly gives us, monopoly means a market where there is a single seller, there is no close substitute, and it only there should be some there should be some power or some control over the supply of the product. This is the basic definitions of monopoly. Okay, now if we come for examples. Okay, now if we come for examples of monopoly, the first thing we can go for is local utilities. Local utilities means sometimes you can see that there are many things like electricity, water or natural gas which is being supplied by a particular company or a particular agency in a particular place within a particular time. Means suppose if I talk about CSC. Okay, CSC, Okay, or if I talk about some other types of companies, so these companies are one kind of monopoly, because these companies produce, CSC produce electricity in many parts of Kolkata, in many parts of outside Kolkata. But where CSC produce electricity, the electricity is not produced by anyone else. So what that becomes a monopoly in many regions where the essential things like electricity, water or natural gas, these are being supplied by some particular agency or some particular company, and this often becomes natural monopoly, and this often becomes natural monopoly and becomes and moreover they actually operate with multiple firms. It is okay, they are not operating with multiple firms, they are inefficient to operate with multiple firms. But local utilities, in case of local utilities, it is a very good example, because we have seen in many places that electricity is supplied by a particular agency or a particular company, no other agency or no other company is used to supply electricity. Or if I talk about natural gas, if I talk about water, if I talk about some other things, so if a particular company or agency supplies a particular product, some essential services within a particular place, then it is called it can be termed as an example of local utility. Okay. Pharmaceutical companies with patents. Pharmaceutical companies means some companies used to have some patents about some new drugs. Okay, so if without that company, if anyone sells that particular drug, that is not basically the company cannot sell it, because that becomes illegal. So pharmaceutical companies with patents, some pharmaceutical companies have patents to sell a particular drug within a particular place, and they have the rights to produce. Okay, but this basically creates a temporary monopoly, because the patent should have a time limit. The patent may be of 2 months, the patent may be of 3 months, the patent may be of 4 months, or the patent may be of 1 year. But after that 1 year, other companies can sell, but within that 1 year, since that company got the patent, no one can sell that, and this is basically, we can say as it is a pure monopoly. Okay, we can say that these are monopolies within that particular time. There are other things also, like the critical control over inputs. This is a very interesting point. Critical control over inputs means the thing I sell, I have to produce it first, then I have to sell it in the market. But for producing the thing, suppose a particular raw material is needed, and that raw material, the place where the raw material I will get, the place where I will get that raw material is in a particular area, is in a particular area, and moreover within that particular area I can collect that raw material, and after that raw material comes to me, I can produce the final product and I can sell it in the market. But the thing is that if the raw where the raw material comes from, if that place is owned by me, if that particular place is owned by me, then what happens? Then we have a control over that input, we have control over that input, and that becomes a monopoly, we becomes a monopoly. The most important example is De Beers diamonds, the diamond industry. They actually control a vast majority of the world's diamond supply, because they have the whole control over the input or the raw materials where from it comes. So De Beers diamond is a very important example. It basically have a vast majority of the world's diamond supply. Okay, then Microsoft, taking an example of Microsoft Windows operating system, it has a dominant position in the whole world. We know that whether we are using a computer, whether we are using a laptop or anything, Microsoft Windows operating system, it has a very dominating position in today's world also. Okay, so these types of things comes to monopoly, and these types of things leads to monopoly market. So if we just have a key takeaways, that monopoly means a single seller in a market with no close substitute. There should be no close substitute. Key economics define monopoly by a single seller, and barriers to entry. There should be some barriers to entry, that if I am a monopoly and if someone wants to join the market, they cannot, because there should be some barriers to entry. Monopolists can influence price, but they are limited by market demand. Okay, examples include local utilities. Local utilities means what I gave the example of: water, electricity and essential services that is being produced by some particular agency or some particular company in a particular place. Patented drugs means where there should be some historical cases, or patented drugs means some company have some patent about for selling a particular drugs. There should be some historical cases like De Beers diamonds. If we talk about De Beers diamonds, these De Beers diamonds, they actually have some critical control over the raw materials, where from where those raw material comes, they control that places, and since they have the control over that inputs, they can easily produce, or they can easily share those De Beers diamonds. They can easily sell those De Beers diamonds, and they are actually a massive supplier, a vast supplier of the diamonds in the whole world. Okay, bases or sources of monopoly. Bases or sources of monopoly. What are the bases and sources of monopoly? First we come about bases, means what are the pillars for what we can call a monopoly. Okay, what are the basic pillars, or what are the bases on which we can say that this is a monopoly. Okay, first there should be some legal monopoly. If you talk about legal monopolies are basically nothing but these are created and protected by government laws. Okay, these are created and protected by government laws. Okay, now this should always promote public welfare, and that it should ensure that it cannot it should promote always, it should always go for innovations, and always ensure that public welfare is maintained. Okay, some common monopolies are include some common legal monopolies that include are patents. Okay, these patents are, patent means what I told, that patents basically are things that government shall give you, that you can sell this particular product in the market, no one other than you can sell this product. Okay, I give a very good example, what we call as a Xerox. We call for Xerox machine. Okay, but actually there is no name of Xerox. Xerox is not named. What we do is a photocopy. What we do is a photocopy, not Xerox. So this Xerox basically comes from xerography. Xerography is a machine, and xerography was patented. Okay, xerography machine was patented, that without this machine no one can sell that particular machine. Okay, now suppose if I produce something, if I produce a pen, if I produce a pen, okay, or if I produce a smartphone in today's date, and I produce that smartphone in some innovating ways, in some innovating ways, and I just go for that selling that smartphone, and I told the government that since I produce that smartphone and it has some extraordinary features than other smartphones, so I want to take a patent. So government decided to give me a patent about the smartphone. And what is a patent? Government told that only I can sell that particular smartphone in the market, no one else can sell that particular smartphone, or same to same like smartphone in the market. Okay, so this becomes a patent. Now if I get the patent for 1 year, suppose I get the patent for 1 year from the government told me that only you can sell the smartphone in the market, market for 1 year. Okay, and no one else can do that. So what happens? I becomes a monopoly, because I am the single seller for that particular 1 year. No one else can sell that particular phone in the 1 year. No one else can sell the particular phone in 1 year. So I becomes a particular seller. I becomes a single seller or particular seller in that 1 year. Okay, so this is what we call as patent. Most of the cases in pharmaceutical companies, this takes place when they are producing a new drug by some innovations or something. So they go for the patents, because they go for the government patents, because that they can only sell those drugs in the market, no other companies can sell the similar drugs in the market. Okay, sometimes we go for copyrights and trademarks. These are very easy. Copyrights and trademarks means what I use cannot be used by others. Okay, this becomes a copyright. Suppose these notes, suppose the notes I am using in this video. Okay, so this notes is made by Ecovision Academy. Now if I may give a copyright for that, that if someone uses my note for his or her video, or if someone uses my note for any other purpose, so there will be a copyright portion, there will be a copyright. So copyright means it gives an exclusive right to the authors, artists and creators over their original works. Means this note is created by Ecovision Academy. I created this note, and for that particular I have some exclusive rights over the I have some exclusive rights over the original work. So no one else rather than me can use these notes for any other purpose like video creation, like content creation, or any other things. Okay, so this is known as copyright. Okay, trademarks are similar to copyrights. Trademarks are also similar to copyrights. This basically uses a symbol. Okay, you can see I have used a symbol Ecovision Academy. Okay, the watermark I used, this is basically a trademark. So if I use a watermark or trademark like that, so Ecovision Academy, this trademark, when it is pasted in this, I can say that this is my original copy and no one else can use this copy for any other purpose. So this also becomes a monopoly. Okay, government license and franchisee. government license means if government license someone to sell something or to sell some product or to operate in a particular market or operate in a particular specific service, then it is called government license or franchises. Okay, so in this case all that also becomes monopoly. Suppose government told me that you can only sell these types of bakery cakes in the in this region, no one else can sell these types of bakery cakes in the region. So if government gives me this franchisee or government gives me the license of selling some particular bread or selling some particular cakes into a particular market, then I can only sell that, no one else can sell that, and this becomes government license and franchisee. Okay, now we come for ownership and natural resources. We talked about De Beers diamonds. We talked about De Beers diamonds because De Beers have a global diamond supply and pricing. So where what happens actually, I already told that whenever you are selling something, you have to produce it first. After you are producing it, you need some raw materials. When you are producing it, you need some raw materials. Now, if you have the critical control over that raw materials, if you have that critical control over that raw materials, you can actually ensure that I can produce that thing in a finest way rather than others. And when you can produce those things fine in the finest way rather than others, you can supply those things in a massive scale. And what happens, you becomes a monopoly. The most important example is De Beers diamond. Okay, De Beers actually historically controlled a vast majority of world diamond mines. What I told you, that De Beers have a vast majority of world diamond mines. The diamond mines from where the diamond actually is being produced, it is a vast majority is being controlled by De Beers. And after that, it gives an immense power to De Beers for the global diamond supply. It gives an immense power to the diamond for the global power supply, global supply. Okay, and that is why De Beers can also control the pricing process. De Beers can also control the supply process and all that. Okay, there are many other examples, you can go through this. Okay, now the most important thing is economies of scale, very important thing, what we call as a natural monopoly. Okay, for this give me an example. Let me give you an example. Suppose there are three companies A, B and C. There are three companies A, B and C. These three companies are selling a pen. These three companies are selling pens. Okay, A is a very big company, B is something middle type of company. Middle type means not so big company, but it's okay, fine. And C is a small company. We consider A is a very big company according to its production capacity and turnover. I am talking according to its production capacity and turnover. B is something a company. Okay, it's fine. It is a company according to its production capacity and turnover. It is a middle types of company, and C is a very small company. Okay. Now the thing is that when A is a very big company, if according to its production capacity and turnover, A can produce lot amounts of pens, a huge amount of pens. So when A is producing huge amount of pens, what happens? The costing for each pen, suppose for A it becomes 8 rupees. For C, it becomes 9.5 rupees, 9 rupees 5 paisa. And for B, it becomes 9 rupees. Okay. Now, since A is a very big company, it can produce pens at a very cheap because it is producing at a large scale. B is not producing at a large scale, and C is actually not producing in a large scale because it is a small company. Since A is producing in a large scale and A is a very big company, A can produce the pen at 8 per unit, 8 per unit. Okay, and similarly B can produce at 9 per unit and C can produce at 9.5 per unit. Now if A can produce at 8 per unit, what will happen? A can sell that particular product at 10 per unit. 8 A can produce and sell at per 10 unit. Suppose the market price is 10 unit. So A, what is the profit? Suppose the market price is 10 unit for a pen. So what is the profit? For C is producing the pen at 9.5, so the profit becomes 0.5. B is producing at 9, so the profit becomes 1, and A is producing at 8, so the profit becomes 2. Now if we look among that, if we compare among A, B and C, so A is making the largest profit. Now what A decides? A decides to sell the pen at 9 rupees. A decides to sell the pen at 9 rupees. A decides to sell the pen at 9 rupees because it is producing at 8 rupees per unit. Okay. So if start selling the pen at 9 rupees, however, C being a small company or a small producer producing house, it will vanish from the market because it produces the pen at 9.5 rupees. If it starts selling at 9 rupees, what will happen? It will bear a loss of 0.5 rather than a profit. It will bear a loss of 0.5. So C will be removed from the market, or C will totally vanish from the market. What will happen? B can still continue in the market. So when C vanishes from the market, what A will do? A will also try to produce the amount that was C producing till date. Means suppose A was producing 100 pence and C was producing 20 pence. Now if C was producing 20 pence, since A is selling the pen at rupees 9 per unit and the cost of producing a pen for C is 9.5 per unit, so what they will do? C will stop producing pens. It will stop producing pens. Now these 20 pens will be produced by A again. So A will start producing 100 as well as the 20 pence of that C was producing. Okay. Now when A is producing much larger pens, 120 pens, the amount of pens is again growing up, then A can produce those pens in a more less price. The more less price, the input price should be more less. Now suppose A can now produce the total pens at 7 per unit. 7 per unit, and A starts selling the pens at 8 per unit. So A takes 1 rupees as a profit. A takes 1 rupees at a profit. Now what about B? B was producing at 9, and if B starts selling at 8 per unit, then B will incur a loss of -1. Okay, B will start losing the market rather than gaining some profit. So B will also vanish. B will be also being removed. B will also vanish from the market. Only the company which was producing in a large scale, A will only remain in the market. No other companies B and C, they will vanish from the market, because since the production capacity of A, it was so huge for A and it was producing in a very large scale, and as a result what happens? A basically maximizes its production. A basically maximizes its production, and since A is maximizing its production, B and C is removed from the market. B and C is removed totally from the market, and what happens? A captures the whole market. After capturing the whole market, A becomes the monopoly of in the market. Okay, and this is known as, in such situation, often leads to natural monopoly. See, what are the characteristics of natural monopoly? High fixed cost and low marginal cost, extensive infrastructure requirements, that is power grids, water pipes and railway networks. It is more efficient for a single firm to serve the entire market than for multiple firms. Means when A, B and C was operating simultaneously, due to B and C, the market price was very high. We were selling it at 10 rupees per unit. But when A started selling at 9 rupees per unit, C disappears from the market. B was still continuing. But when A started selling at 8 rupees, 7 rupees, A started selling at 8 rupees per unit, B also vanishes and only A becomes the monopoly. And it is often termed as natural monopoly. Okay. Now come to the other points. Okay, what are the bases? Now it is technical superiority, technological superiority. Technological superiority means sometimes you have some Google. If I give example of Google, Google have a technological lead in search algorithms, and it have some continuous innovations, that each search engine is the best. We have several search engines. We have Yahoo, we have other search engines, but whenever we go to the web browser, what we search first? We go for the Google. We go for the Google because due to its technological superiority, because we get better service in Google rather than other places. And since we get better service, so Google have some technological superiority in this market, that they can provide the customers a better service. And for that we can use Google, and we always use Google as a search engine. And due to its continuous innovation, what can Google is kind of temporary monopoly in the market. Google can conquer a technological monopoly, temporary monopoly in the market. So this technological lead can create a temporary monopoly. This is also very important. Sometimes suppose you have a company, I have a company, but what we produce are same, but due to my technological superiority I give better service to the customers, and customers comes to me, not to you, and I becomes a temporary monopoly in the market. Okay. Okay, now government monopoly. Most important example is the Indian Railways. If we talk about the Indian railway system, now Indian Railways doesn't allow any other railway company. There is actually no railway company in India rather than Indian Railways. But if any someone makes a railway company and starts to give service to the people about the railway systems and all that, then it becomes a government monopoly. Okay, no one can actually enter the market. No other railway if I want to make a railway company and starts joining the Indian Railway to give service rather than Indian Railway, so this becomes a government monopoly. Indian Railway is a government monopoly. No one can enter into that market. No one can enter into the market because there are certain rules and regulations that to operate directly or indirectly of the Indian Railways. Other than Indian Railways, no other railway companies. If I make a new railway company in India and start join the Indian Railway, or if I go for other services, I cannot do that because there are certain rules and regulations that is being created by the government. And Indian Railways is a fantastic example because it is the only single seller, only single service provider in whole India for railway purpose. Indian Railway is the only single seller and only single railway service provider in whole India. No one else. There is no close substitute, no substitute, nothing. So this is known as government monopoly. Okay. Now suppose there are barriers to entry. Sometimes the basis of monopoly can be a barriers to entry. Barriers to entry means if I want to create if I want to I can give the same service, but I want to enter the market, but I cannot. I cannot. Why? Because there should be some strategical or structural, there should be some legal process for entering the market. So sometimes under barriers to entry, what can happen? High capital requirements means what you want to do, you want to enter the market. But for entering the market, you need high capital requirement, in massive amount of investment, massive amount of large scale manufacturing, but that may not be with you, and if that is not with you, you cannot enter the market. Okay. Absolute cost advantage. Absolute cost advantage means if you are producing something, I am also producing the same thing, but due to some technological constraint or due to some other things, I have a absolute cost advantage. Absolute cost advantage, I can produce the same thing at a cheaper price because I get the raw materials at a cheaper price. What I told about DBR's diamonds, DBR's diamonds have a critical control over the diamond mines. DBR's diamonds have a huge control over the diamond mines over the years. So they can actually give a lots of, they can generate a lots of, they can provide a lots of diamonds and pricing at a lower pricing, and they can control the whole supply of the diamond market. So there are sometimes some absolute cost advantage means if I get the raw materials at a cheap price, I can also give you the raw materials, I can give you the finished product at a cheap price. But if there is someone else in your market who is not getting the raw materials at a cheap price, he or she will not be able to give the same product at the same price what you are giving. Okay. Now product differentiation and brand loyalty. So there are some brands which attract customers. Okay. Suppose there are some existing brand. Okay. Suppose there is a existing brand of a particular pen company, and I am just entering the market, and I am also producing the pen, but with a different name of my company. But since that is a brand, the pen is a brand, the pen have some brand, so due to that product differentiation and brand loyalty, the market for pens will be controlled by that company, not by us. Okay. Control over distribution channels. Control over distribution channel means a monopolist might control key distribution networks. Means suppose they can, a monopoly actually what happens, they can actually control the key distribution networks, and it making it difficult for the new products to reach the customers. Okay. Means the distribution, new, suppose new products comes to the market, and the monopoly have the control over the distribution network, about the supply networks, about the logistic network, about the distribution network. And what can the monopoly do? The monopoly can basically reach the, and can control the products to can control the products by reaching to the customers. If it can control the products for reaching to the customers, then it can be monopoly for a long time. Suppose I am a monopoly in my region, and I used to sell a particular pen, but there I can see that there are many companies which are selling pen, which are coming to the market and they are going to sell some pens, but due to some technology, what I can do, I have some key distribution networks. I have the control over the distribution network, and due to the control of the distribution network, I make it difficult for new products. I make it difficult for new products to reach the customers. And what happens, I only control that place, I only produce that, I only provide the particular pains to the customers, and I have the monopoly power. Okay, so sometimes there shall be some network effects, there shall be some mergers and acquisitions. Okay, brand loyalty we already talked about. Now coming to the features, the most important part, features of the characteristics of the monopoly. What are the features and what are the characteristics of the monopoly market? First of all, a monopoly market has several distinct features. Like, the most important features that it is a single seller. The monopoly market is a single seller. Okay, in case of a monopoly, there is only a single seller and there is only particular one seller and many buyers. There may be many buyers. I talked about Indian Railways. Indian Railways have many buyers, a lot of buyers, a lot of service they are producing. But Indian Railways is the only seller. It is only producing the service, no one else. Okay, because implication of monopolies sometimes face no direct competition from other industries. Other industries means, since it is a single seller, it has no it should, there should be no have some similar product or no close substitute. So despite rather they, if they do not have some close substitute, they do not have some types of close substitutes or any other close products or anything, so it becomes the direct competition. So they faces no direct competition, no competition from other companies, no competition from outside the other companies. Okay, so this gives them a significant monopoly power, what we call as a monopoly power. This gives them a market power. Suppose I sell a pen in the market, and what kind of pen I sell in the market is not being sold, or I restrict other people, or I got the patent from the government. So if I can only sell the pen in the market, I will have some market power, because I can control the supply, I can decide the pricing, each and everything. Okay, then no close substitute. If for a true monopoly, which is a true monopoly, they have no close substitute. They have no close substitute. Okay, what basically the thing is that if there is no close substitute, I can the cross price elasticity between of the demand between the monopoly's product or any other product becomes zero. We know that about cross price elasticity. Cross price elasticity means the change in the percentage change in demand of my product due to percentage change in price of other products. So if there is no close substitute, say, suppose I talk about tea and coffee. I talk about tea and coffee. What happens for tea and coffee? For tea and coffee, these are substitute products. So now if the price of coffee increases, the demand for tea may decrease or increase. If the price of tea increases, the demand for coffee may increase or decrease, means there can be a change. Okay, so if there is no substitute products, if there is no close substitute, what I am selling, I have no substitute in the market, then their cross price elasticity, what will be the cross price elasticity? It will be zero. Because if there is a change in the price of other products which is being sold in the market, they do not have relation with my products. They do not have any kind of relation with my products. And what happens if there is a change in other products in the market, price of other products in the market, they do not have any kind of relation with the demand of my product in the market, and the cross price elasticity becomes zero. Okay, now high entry barriers. High entry barriers means sometimes when we enter the market, there may be some high entry barriers. We already talked about that there may be some natural, legal or technological barriers. Okay, and we know, we term monopoly as a price maker, not as a price taker, because due to its sole control over the supply and the market, due to absence of a close substitute in the market, the monopoly is always known as, becomes a distinct, and they are always known as a price maker. Okay, they are known as a price maker. We have already gone through this control over supply. Okay, now what is the demand curve of a monopoly? The demand curve of a monopoly is always downward sloping. The market demand curve of a monopoly is always downward sloping. What it indicates, it basically indicates the law of demand. As we know the law of demand, it basically indicates that if the price increases, its demand decreases, and if the price decreases, its demand increases. So it basically, the downward sloping demand curve is faced by the monopolist, and it basically can sell more and more units if the price is at the lowest. Okay, fine. Supernormal profit. Supernormal profit means we count three types of profit. One is normal profit, one is supernormal profit, another is loss. Normal profit means zero profit. If I am producing a pen at rupees 8 and selling the pen, particular pen, at rupees 8, so what becomes? It becomes zero. The profit becomes zero. It is known as zero profit. And what is a supernormal profit? Supernormal profit is something, it is also known as economic profit or abnormal profits. Supernormal profit are basically when we are, suppose I am producing a pen at rupees 8 and selling that pen particular at rupees 10, then there is a rupees 2 profit, and that is known as supernormal profit or abnormal profit. Okay, now in this case, in a long run, in most of the cases, in a long run, the monopolist can earn supernormal profit, okay, or the economic profits they can earn, because in the long run what happens, there are high barriers to entry. Since there are high barriers to entry, it prevents the new firm from entering the market, it prevents the new firms from entering the market and erode the profits and erode the supply also, I can say. So what happens in the long run, monopolies always earn a supernormal profit. Okay, okay, now coming to the imperfect information. Okay, imperfect information, what is sometimes a degree of imperfection information. Actually consumers may not have some complete information about the alternative products. Okay, suppose there may be some substitute, but there may be some substitute, but the consumer doesn't know about that. Okay, or let me consider there are no substitute, let me consider there are no substitute, but the consumer is not aware, but or the consumer is not totally completely informed about the monopolist cost structure, about the monopolist cost structure. So what happens, there may be some imperfect information, there may be some imperfect information about the total thing, and due to this information asymmetry, monopoly sometimes charges higher price. So, so suppose I am a monopoly and I produce a pen at rupees 5. The cost of producing a pen at is rupees 5, but the customer doesn't know that what is the cost of producing that particular pen. Since I am a monopoly, there may be some kind of imperfect information in the market, there may the consumer may not be aware of the exact information. So I am selling that pen at rupees 20, so I am gaining a profit of 15. But if I go and sell the pen at rupees 10 also, then I am also gaining a profit of 5. But since the customer doesn't know that what is the cost price, what is the producing price of that particular pen, so sometimes the monopoly, due to this, the monopoly's cost structure, since the customer are not aware of the monopoly's cost structure or the cost of producing the pen, the customer always go for the monopoly always can go for charging the higher price and enjoy some extra profits from that market. Okay, so this is what we call as imperfect information. So these are the key takeaways for a monopoly. You can just get these notes, you can just comment on the YouTube channel when the video is being uploaded, you can comment in the YouTube channel, okay, to get these notes, or you can just simply contact 7450882312. You can get this note. Okay, you can just simply contact, or you can WhatsApp Ecovision Academy for getting these types of notes. Okay, you can get the full notes 2312. Okay, this will become 3. Okay, now we come for the advantages of monopoly. The most important advantages of the monopoly is the R&D cell, research and development. Okay, research and development and innovation, because in case of most monopoly, they go for some innovations. In most of the cases they go for some innovations, because they often have a huge market share in the because they always control the supply, it has no close substitute, as we have already gone through. So when they are earning a huge supernormal profit, as I told, the customers are not always aware of the monopoly's cost structure, what is the cost structure of the monopoly. So in most of the cases, the monopoly invests the extra money, the monopoly exactly invests the extra money into the particular thing, and they always invest the money in R&D, research and development and innovation. Okay, this is a very important interesting part where the monopoly actually go for this R&D and research and development innovation. The monopoly actually invest those extra profits for the R&D purpose. So this is a very good advantage of monopoly, because more innovations and more research and development it gives for a good product. It can drive innovation, it can leading to new products, improve process and technological advancement, more of the quality of the product may increase and all that. Okay. Most important example is about the pharmaceutical companies. The pharmaceutical companies which are being protected by patents. I already told that government give patents to the pharmaceutical companies for selling new drugs or anything. Whenever the pharmaceutical companies give, they are protected by patents in developing new drugs. In such cases, the R&D, they always used to go for research and development for the cutting edge technologies and to innovate the product, to improve the quality of the product. They always go for some research and development. Okay. Economies of scale and efficiency. What I told is that I gave the example of A, B, C, three companies that actually mentions the economies of scale. As the economies of scale means, as I go on producing in a huge scale, when I enjoy the economies of scale, I can efficiently large smaller farms in a large scale. Okay. And I can efficiently produce the good and service in a lower average cost. I can produce the goods and service in a lower average cost, and for that particular I can just sell the products in a lower price also, because when I enjoy at a lower average cost, when I enjoy producing at a lower average cost, I can also sell that particular product in a lower price level. Okay, this is what we call as economies of scale and efficiency. Price stability, for a monopolist, due to, since it is the main supplier, it is the main controller of the market, they can have a greater price stability compared to the other competitive markets. Because what happens in a competitive market, suppose in a competitive market there are 100 farms, and they are always competing with each other in price, or they are always competing each other with quantities. But what happens in case of monopoly, the price stability, since it is the only seller, it is the only supplier of the product, it can basically have a higher price stability compared to other competitive market in the competitive markets. Okay. Moreover, avoidance of duplication and waste in a monopoly, since it is a uh, particular seller and they have multiple companies. Suppose I give an example, in industries with high fixed cost, means the fixed cost is very high and extensive infrastructure, a monopoly can prevent the duplication of resources and wasteful competition. Because having multiple companies build separate water pipes or electricity grids in the same area would be inefficiently and costly. Because suppose I have multiple companies, and I for multiple companies I built separate water pipes and separate electricity grids for that particular company. Okay. For company A there is a particular separate water line and electricity grid. For company B there is a particular separate water line, particular separate grid. For like this, for 8 to 10 companies I have particular separate water line and particular separate grids. But if I have only one company, if I am a monopoly, what will happen? There will be duplication of resources and wasteful competition. Duplication of resources, wasteful competition means, for multiple companies, for having multiple companies, I have to spend a lot of things for separate water pipes or electricity lines. But for a particular, when I am a monopoly, when I am a monopoly, I am just a single provider and I can optimize the use of the infrastructure, and I can avoid the extra investment. I can avoid, so that it becomes more efficient and the resources are well allocated. Okay. So this is a very important point. Cross subsidization. Cross subsidization means, when monopolists, particularly those providing essential service means like water, electricity and all these things. Okay. For if I give a national postal service, for I give an example of a national postal service. Postal service means the post department, the department of post. If we are is using an example of the national postal service, most of the cases a national postal service is under a government monopoly. Okay. And it might use profit from the urban places and give the postal service in the rural areas in a uneconomical way. Means, suppose if you see the example, for a national postal service might use profits from urban routes to maintain postal service in the remote rural areas where they would otherwise be uneconomical. Means, in most of the remote rural areas, the postal service, when the postal service reach that places, they have to bear a high cost. due to bad condition of the roads, due to bad condition of electricity, due to bad condition of transportation, due to bad condition of communication, networks, and many things. So what can a national postal service do? A government monopoly can do. It can use the profits that is being earned from the urban places, because in urban places there is a huge profit, there is a good communication, there is a good road condition, there is a good water condition, there is a good electricity supply. All the things are good in urban places. So the communication in urban places for a postal service becomes very much easy than what in a rural area. So what the postal service can do, it can basically use the profits that is driven from the urban routes, and particularly use that profit in the postal service where in the remote rural areas. So this is cross subsidization. I am using the profit generated from the urban places and using that particular profit in the rural areas for the postal service in the remote rural areas. This can be a good thing. Okay. So these are the things of advantages of a monopoly, and we come to the disadvantages of a monopoly. Sometimes the monopoly use a higher price and lower output. Means since it is a particular what I talked about, that many of the customers are not aware of the cost structure of the monopoly. What is the cost of production of a monopoly, and what is the cost of production of a monopoly, in at what price they are actually producing the particular product. So what they do, they can actually charge higher price and produce a lower output to maintain its supply. As we know, there is a the price is always being dependent on demand and supply. So let's take an example. Suppose in a place there are demand for 10 pence, okay, 10 pence, and the monopoly is the only seller, the monopoly is only selling the pen, it have a monopoly power, and it is actually, it have the capacity to produce 10 pence, it actually produces 6 pence. Why? Because for producing 10 pence, and for there, if there is a demand for 10 pence and if I am producing 6 pence, there is a gap, there is a gap of 4 pence, and excess demand of 4 pence used to come. And if and there is an excess demand of 4 pence, if there is an excess demand of 4 pence, what happens? The market price of the pence increases. If there is an example of if there is an demand for 4 pence, the market price actually increases of the pens, and when the market price increases, it sells that particular pen in a higher price. So what it does, it sells in a higher price and produce lower output. So since the total supply is controlled by the monopoly, it can do whatever it wants. Okay. Now since it sells at a higher price, it reduces the consumer surplus. This is very good. You know about consumer surplus. Consumer surplus means actual price minus, sorry, let me write in that way. Suppose you want to buy a pen and your maximum willingness to pay is rupees 10 for buying a pen, and whenever you go to the shop you see that the actual price of the pens becomes 8. So what is consumer surplus? Consumer surplus is nothing but it is maximum willingness to pay minus actual price. So what will be that? 10 minus 8, the consumer surplus becomes 2. So whenever the monopoly is charging the higher price, suppose the monopoly can sell the pen at rupees 8 because it is producing at a lower cost than 8. But if the monopoly charges rupees 9 in place of 8, then the consumer surplus becomes 1. So in that case, whenever consumer surplus becomes 1, that it reduces the welfare in the economy, it reduces the welfare in the country, in the nation. Okay. So this is what we call as a overall welfare is sometimes disturbed by the monopoly, and in a monopoly consumers pay more and they have to get less, okay, diminishing their overall welfare. Okay. And productive inefficiency, because uh, they do not have the incentive to minimize cost or adopt some techniques that can minimize cost. Because what happens, since they are the only seller, they know that what they are producing should be sold in the market, and due to that, what happens, they do not have a strong incentive to minimize cost. And when they do not have a strong incentive to minimize cost, what happens, they actually do not adopt, sometimes they actually do not adopt the most efficient production techniques by which they can actually minimize the cost. But they do not do that because they do not have the pressure of competition. Suppose if there are 10 firms, and due to pressure of competition, all the firms are competing with each and everyone for producing the particular product at a lower price so that they can sell at a lower price. But what happens in a monopoly, since it is only the firm, it is only selling the product, they do not have that urge, or they do not have that incentive, they do not have that pressure of competition from other firms, so that they can produce that particular product at a minimum cost. Okay, so sometimes it lacks innovations, since they are not adopting some new techniques which can reduce the cost, so it lacks some innovations. Okay, now income inequality, monopoly can contribute to income inequality in the wealth and power, because when the owners are when the monopoly, who are the owners or the shareholders of the monopoly's farm, they can only enjoy a higher profit, whereas the other farms which are also operating in that particular place, they do not have that particular profit, or they do not earn the same level of supernormal profit or other thing. So there may be some income inequality in the market. Okay, so sometimes abuse of market power, sometimes they actually abuse the market power. What happens, because when already I told, suppose in a particular area the monopoly is selling pens, and it can produce 10 pens, and there is a demand for 10 pens, but what it actually do, it actually want to create an excess demand in the market to increase the price of the pen. So what they could do, they actually supply 6 pens, and what as a result, there are an extra demand for 4 pence, there are an excess demand of 4 pence, and for this excess demand the price of the product rises, and this is the abuse of market power. So this is basically what we call as a monopoly features, monopoly bases, advantages and disadvantages of monopoly. In the next class we will go for monopoly equilibrium, the short run equilibrium, the three cases monopoly short run equilibrium under monopoly. The thing is that one is the supernormal profit, normal profit, loss. We will go for the equilibrium conditions. We will just explain those things, we will just go for those things with some diagrams and all that. Up to this, if you have any kind of doubt, you can just reach us via YouTube, you can connect to us in Facebook Ecovision Academy, you can just connect to us in YouTube Ecovision Academy channel, you can connect to us at LinkedIn, or if you want these types of notes, just connect to us at 7450882312. Okay, you just give a WhatsApp and you will get these types of notes. Okay, so thank you. We meet in the next class.